Hare Krishna. We're going to read from the Bhagavad Gita tonight, and it's chapter 3, Karma Yoga, text 21. Thank you, Anne and Damayanti and Keith and everybody over at the Bhakti Yoga Retreat for being here tonight. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Chapter 3, text 21 of Bhagavad Gita. Yadyaracharati shreshtas.
Yadyaracharati shreshtas.
Tatareva taro janaha.
Tatareve taro jana.
Saya pramanam kurute.
Saya pramanam kurute.
Lokastara nivartate.
Anuvartate.
Yadyaracharati shreshtas.
Yadyaracharati shreshtas.
Tadeve taro janaha.
Tatareve taro jana.
Saya pramanam kurute.
Sayat pramanam kurute.
Lokastara nivartate.
Lokastadanuvartate.
Yadyaracharati shreshtas.
Yadyaracharati shreshtas.
Tatareve taro janaha.
Tatareve taro jana.
Saya pramanam kurute.
Sayat pramanam kurute.
Lokastara nivartate.
Lokastadanuvartate. Yadyaracharati shreshtas. Tatad eve taro jana. Sayat pramanam kurute. Lokastad anuvartate.
Yadyaracharati shrestha.
Yadyaracharati shrestha.
Tatad eve taro jana.
Tatadeve taro jana.
Sayat pramanam kurute.
Sayat pramanam kurute.
Lokastad anuvartate.
Lokastad anuvartate.
Yadyaracharati shrestha.
Yadyaracharati shrestha.
Tatareva taro janaha.
Tatadeve taro jana.
Sayat pramanamanam kurate.
Sayat pramanam kurute.
Lokastad anuvartate.
Lokastad anuvartate.
Yadyaracharati shrestha.
Yadyaracharati shrestha.
Tadeve taro janaha.
Tatadeve taro jana.
Ayat pramanam kurute.
Sayat pramanam kurute.
Lokastadanuvartate.
Lokastadanuvartate.
Word for word. Yat,
Yat.
Yeah.
whatever.
Never.
Yat,
Yeah.
and whichever.
And whichever.
Acharati,
Acharati.
Does he act?
Dasi,
Shrestha,
Krishna,
respectable leader.
respectable leader.
Tat,
Tat,
that,
that,
tat,
tat,
and that alone.
alone.
Eva,
Eva,
certainly.
certain,
Itaraha, common.
common,
Janaha,
Jana,
person. Sa, he. Yat, whichever.
whichever.
Pramanam,
Manam,
evidence.
evident.
Kurute,
Kute,
does perform.
does perform.
Loka,
Loka,
all the world.
all the world.
Tat,
Tat,
that.
that,
Anuvartate,
avartate.
follow in the footsteps.
Follow in the footsteps.
Translation: whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. People in general always require a leader who can teach the public by practical behavior. A leader cannot teach the public to stop smoking if he himself smokes. Lord Chaitanya said that a teacher should behave properly even before he begins teaching. One who teaches in that way is called acharya, or the ideal teacher. Therefore, a teacher must follow the principles of Shastra, scripture, to reach the common man. The teacher cannot manufacture rules against the principles of revealed scriptures. Revealed scriptures like the Manu Samhita and similar others are considered the standard books to be followed by the human society. Thus, the leader's teaching should be based on the principles of the standard rules as they are practiced by these great teachers. The Srimad Bhagavatam also affirms that one should follow in the footsteps of great devotees, and that in this way of progress, on the path of spiritual realization. The king or executive head of a state, the father, and the school teacher are all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. All such natural leaders have a great responsibility to their dependents. Therefore, they must be conversant with standard books of moral and spiritual codes. I'm going to try this. Thank you for your patience. Omagyanatimirandasya, Jananjana Shalakaya, Chakshurunamitamena, Tashmai Shri Guruve Namaha, Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam, Stapitam Yena Bhutale, Svayam Rupa Kadamayam, Dadati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru, Shri Yuta Kamalam, Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha, Shri Rupam Sagajatam, Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Savadutam, Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padam, Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakas Vitamscha, Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshvari Ishabhanu Shuti Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Panchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu vyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Ti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharani Nirvishesha Shunyavani Pasha Kadesha Tarani. Yadyadeva Yadyaracharati Shtrestas Tatadeve Taro Janaha Saya Pramanam Kurute Mukastadani Vartate. Whatever action is performed by a great man, common men follow in his footsteps. And whatever standards he sets by exemplary acts, all the world pursues. I've been reading and thinking about this verse for a while, and maybe a year ago I read this verse, and so in class today I was going to kind of focus on it, because what happened when I read this verse the first time was nothing, and then when I read the verse the second time a couple years later, it pierced me, and it's been sitting with me. That was about a year ago, and so when I was asked to lead the class, it didn't come to mind, but as I thought about it for a minute, I wanted to select a verse that, that I knew something about in my heart, because I'm shy when I'm teaching in front of other people, so I needed to speak from a place that I really understood, that touched me. And this verse, about a year ago, and I think I may have had a coaching session about this verse with Dear Govinda, but when I read it, I had to stop in my tracks, because I felt like I really wasn't being a very good leader, and most of my life was spent at my office at work, and in that work life, and I was very resentful and really blaming other people for my being stuck there, and judging people that I worked with, and coming into the office with a really negative energy around me. And when I read this verse, I felt like, oh boy, I have a responsibility. I'm not really holding up to it very well. So I sat with it for a minute that day, and I cried, and I tried to hear it in my heart, and I asked myself, what am I going to do about it? And I felt like that real solid shift that day. I think it was about a year ago. And all of you know my situation with being stuck, feeling stuck at work, and putting myself in that position, and not being brave enough to leave that place, to strike out without that security. And so I just distinctly remember reading this verse, and like it's piercing through me and saying, okay, you have to do something different. You have to be different. You can't continue like this. You're letting other people down, and you're not being a true leader. That I had a responsibility. So I processed it that night, and I like something happened. I don't know. So the power of the scripture happened. So I went into work the next day, and I didn't go in, like everything was perfect again, but I went in with a different attitude. And I remember looking at the front door and walking up the steps to it and saying, today I'm going to be an exemplary leader. I'm going to walk the talk. I'm going to do my best to show the people that are looking up to me that we're going to be okay, and that I can give them something to grasp onto, besides avoiding me and avoiding my negative energy, and everyone knowing that I really wanted to leave, but I was dragging my feet there. So that's where this all came from. And I've worked on this verse in my mind and my heart for a year. And it definitely, when I changed the way I was looking at things, the people around me changed, and it was pretty miraculous. I'm not sure that I knew it was possible until I witnessed it and experienced it. So I was thinking about that as I'm driving and out here, and kind of I've got some time and space, and you know, a lot has changed in this year that you all are very, very aware of, and a lot that was out of my hands, and a lot that I actually controlled, and I don't like using that word, but you know what I mean. So here I sit with this verse today, and I was thinking about, okay, leaders in my life and leaders that I know about, and leaders that are in these books that we study, the Vedas. So I of course, went straight to Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya and the Goswamis and the obvious leaders, and then I thought about leaders in my life, and leaders in my family, leaders in my association with all of you, and I felt like, okay, let me just see what are the common denominators. And so I kind of broke it apart and I looked at Lord Chaitanya first. So I didn't know that much about him, so I read a lot about him, and from forgive me if I make any factual errors, but this is what I know from the little bit that I know, that it was kind of the Renaissance times when he was here, and people weren't really God conscious. And so when he started this movement of singing in the streets and saying Krishna's name and attracting followers and being so vibrant, even as a child, that it wasn't looked on so positively. And so what he had to do was be confident and courageous and brave, and really he just lived it. And so I could relate to that. Not that I could be that right now, but I could relate to it. And so when I put his characteristics down, I thought about how he had all, the word followers comes up in this verse a lot. And so I thought about he attracted the followers with all of the qualities of leadership. And so hundreds of thousands of followers in a time when the government was not Krishna conscious, for sure. It was Muslim. And so he had a lot of there were barriers, and not unlike all of the barriers that we have today, not that much different. And so and even in our personal small situations, it's still, there's barriers, and there's people that are not in favor of what we're doing. So I thought of how he just vibrantly lived his passionate life and stood out for that, and walked out there, and how he could have chosen to, after he was, quote unquote famous, or after he was well respected, and he was intelligent, and he was a good debater, and he was beautiful, and he was attractive, and people loved being around him, and he was just had this endless vibrance. And so it would have been easy for him to just rest on that and sit on it and stay home, or stay home with his mom or his wife or his all these people who were so attracted and were praising him. And he kept on the move. And so I saw it as like, okay, this is a quality of of humility, but not having an ego, and not the payoff wasn't what he was after. He just lived it. And so that bold fearlessness was really attracted to me. So I like thinking about that today, and I thought about how he just overcame everything, and he didn't even, I don't even think he saw it as an obstacle. He just went through it. And so when I look at those qualities of passion, that passionate stuff, I want some of that. We all want some of that. The motivation, staying motivated and always on our path, walking the talk instead of just talking from behind the desk or from home, or once you get your accolades and your payoff, you kind of rest a little bit or slow down. And the humility that comes with all of that, accountability, just, I don't know, it seems like he has all the qualities, and that's why he is who he is, and that's why he motivated the line of disciples and Prabhupada came to us is all because of him. And it was like not the time in history that it was the most easy to do that. Just like Prabhupada was here, it was a challenging space to go out and do this in a country that was of another faith in a time that was not about God, that was more about art and music and lavishness and the body. So I was when I was reading about Chaitanya today, I was thinking about how lucky I felt to be in a space where I could read about it and get to understand it, and that I had the leadership and the guidance to get this far. And so I was thinking about the verse in the Gita 7.3 that talks about the one in a million. So I want to share that verse because it's not about leadership, but it's about the few of us. And something about that resonated with me because that's why we're here. That's why we're on the screen together right now, and that's why we're here in Krishna consciousness right now. So I'm going to share verse 7.3. I'm just going to read the translation. Amongst thousands of persons, hardly one strives for perfection. And amongst those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. And so this Chaitanya knew him in truth. And we have the opportunity to know this truth. And we get to practice our practice of reading and sharing and kirtan and chanting and sharing prasadam and association. And we get that from him, and we get to be out of this, millions of people. We get to be out of this little group of a few, and that somehow like makes me feel part of something bigger, and it somehow fuels a leadership quality that's deep in me that I've abused and not necessarily been a model for, but it's in there. And so when I could relate to him, and then I thought, well, okay, so I get to be one of the few. I'm choosing to be one of the few. And so I was gonna, if we look in this verse, that there was things in here I didn't know that I had to kind of look up and study a little bit. And so I was thinking about, okay, what are the rules or the regulations or the way that we learn how to be a good leader if we don't have a Prabhupada or we don't have access to Chaitanya? Where do these guides come from, the guidelines? And so I just I didn't know what the Manu Samhita was, and I wasn't sure what were considered the other books either. So I just looked around today and kind of was like, okay, there's the Bible, and there's the Ten Commandments, there's the Quran, there's all kinds of Vedas. And so this Manu Samhita, I now know, the little bit that I know is that it's like taking all the good rules out of all of the Vedas and put them in sort of like a law book so that we have them to follow. And it's like a moral obligation to follow them. And so if we're leading from a place that's not in that moral obligation and that ancient wisdom, the text, whether it's the Bible, the Quran, or the Vedas, it's like there's usually some kind of attachment to we're getting something from it, or we're using our authority or something like that, so that we're not it's not coming from a place of God consciousness and rules that are good for human society. It usually has to do with some other drive, personal drive. The basis of all of these books is to serve God, not to serve ourselves. And so if we're to be true leaders, even in our personal life, even when I'm by myself and I know better and I choose other things, like it feels like it's those same moral laws that are in the Vedas, in the Manu Samhita, or in the Bible or wherever, is that it's that they're so universal and they're so real that they're in there to guide me, to guide us, and to just keep them on the forefront of my life so that I don't forget or choose a lower, easier route. And I guess I'll refer to Lord Chaitanya again of that just staying on that, staying in the middle of the movement and keep moving. If we look at like the other books like the Bible and the Ten Commandments, the funny thing is that I keep seeing the Ten Commandments. I was raised sort of Baptist Methodist, but we didn't really talk about much, and I never studied them, or I think I maybe knew a few of them in the back of my head, but not really. Some of the more simple ones, maybe like thou shalt not kill, but I didn't really know them. But in the last like 3 weeks, I've seen like 20 or 30 like Ten Commandments hanging around, like here and there in people's front yards and it just, and so I kept thinking, well, why am I seeing this? And now I'm seeing that it's kind of like these are standard moral guidelines. And so I had the opportunity to kind of be reminded them a lot the last few weeks. So it's like a code of ethics. And today I was interested to, like, I was thinking about all these other books, these other codes, and they're pretty, from what I learned in my brief, studies today, is that they kind of all say similar things. There's a lot of similarity in the Ten Commandments and other commandments and other books. But if obviously we're looking at the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam and the other books that are from Vedic scriptures. So if all of these books have followers and people read them, but not many people seem to be living by their structure, the code is there, and it's obvious that there's some synchronicity to all these codes. But when I Google codes of behavior or moral law, there's just hundreds of garbage out there. Like it's like there's hundreds and hundreds of books. And so I found a place that said like the 100 top books of moral code, and I was just scanning through them to see if any good stuff was in there. And the one thing I did find that I just wanted to share was that there were two of the 100 books. These aren't Vedic books; these are just random people published books. And the two of them had to do with animal cruelty. And so I wrote the names of them down because I wanted to read them. One of them is called A Plea for the Animals, and it was like number 16 out of 100. So that was kind of enthusiastic for me. And then the other one's Eat Like You Care, which is like number 23 out of 100. So I was like, okay, so animal cruelty is in several moral codes, and besides what we know, and so that was encouraging. And then I guess in general, I was thinking like, okay, so out of all these moral codes and things that we can follow to be a better leader, so that the people that we're around, the people that we're leading, whether it's our children or our co-workers or at our job and in our personal lives and our families, whatever, coaches, I mean, everybody's a leader in their own right. It's not a job that we you can be qualified for it, but it seems like sometimes people just get put in this position. They're not necessarily qualified and not necessarily living or teaching by any moral code. They're qualified to influence people. And that's the strange part, is that like, it's like an entitlement or an influence. Like it's not necessarily based on these qualifications that are in the Vedas or in the Bible. They're just, you knew somebody, or you got elected because you had influence, or you got chosen because you were related to somebody, or maybe you just had a child but you had no intention to be a father, or you got promoted to be a teacher but you don't really have in your heart and soul and motivation to do so within some kind of moral code. Generally, it's not just the opposite. I know we all have experiences with that. So if we're doing so for like a greater good, like the greater good to educate children or to teach children, to do what I was doing in my office, the greater good to teach younger people leadership, to act and talk and walk in a way that they leave with something tangible to be a better person. we all have that responsibility. And so it doesn't, I think we come with some of it deep down inside, like it's in there, but I think being around other people that are good leaders and reading about them and sharing like we do in all these classes, I think that gives us the right or the motivation to sort of take that good character out and lead with it and then influence people in a way that's not just for our own good and it's not service related. There's a lot of people like Oprah and Tony Robbins and other motivational type people that influence people and they're considered leaders, but I don't know. I looked around on their sites today, kind of just seeing like what they're talking about, and there's some God in there. It's a generalized kind of God. It's not too much God, but there's some in there for some of the leaders, but it's pretty watered down, safe version of it so that they can keep their followers and keep their paychecks, I guess. But it is in there. That was a little nice to know. And then so I was thinking about like so what came to mind was and I guess when I reread the Bhagavad Gita, now I'm reading it again, and every time it's a brand new time, is that I was thinking about Arjuna as the leader, and in chapter 3, like I kept thinking this verse, another reason it sat on me so heavily and strongly was that Arjuna was there, and I always had this vision of the battlefield, and I just, pictured both sides of these thousands, I don't know how many thousands of horses and elephants and people and warriors and equipment. And he's just stopped everything to have this conversation with Krishna. And I was thinking about that picture, that image in my mind was that unless he had the authority, unless he had the reputation and the respect, it would be really hard to get everybody to just settle down for a minute while he has a private conversation. And so I think about like if he had chosen this really like is a big image in my mind almost daily of the difficulty in making the right choice, the difficult choice of staying in the battle, of staying in our lives, in our situations, of facing them and going through them, is that if he had left the battlefield and gone off to the woods or to negated what he knew was his true like nature, my mind goes into a million pictures of what would have happened and what that would have looked like mass chaos, like if your leader just walks off. So this image I thought a lot about today, and I was just kind of meditating on how many times we walk off, how many times I've walked off, or how many times I've tried to circumvent the tough stuff. So I was like, let me just dig into what his qualities are. I'm sure they're just like, Lord, you talk about what are his actual qualities and what was like, why did they respect him so much? And why did they just wait? And they let him say when it was time to go. Now I don't know all the details because I'm just learning all this, but like what were his qualities? So I was reading about him today too, and I didn't know this, but he has a whole bunch of different names, like a lot of people in the Vedas. So I was reading about his names today, and so I was like, okay, so when we get a name, it indicates something about our personality and our nature. So I'm going to share a few of them with you. I hope I pronounced them right, and I hope that this is accurate, and I apologize if it's not. I'll stand corrected by anyone who wants to correct me. So even the name Arjuna, I knew it was a tree, but I didn't know like what has it got to do with the tree? A tree's strong and everything, but really it's got to do with this sort of complexion that it has this. The tree has a really fair complexion, and so my understanding from research today was that this sort of stainless reputation sort of emulates that fair complexion, like it's a pure complexion, and so his reputation was like that. Another name was Jishnu, which is unsurpassed, and Vibhasu, which is never an unfair fight. So he's a very fair person. I think we really I trust when I'm dealing with someone who is really fair, I don't feel so threatened. And then another name was Vijaya, which is never returned from the battle without defeating the opponent. So he had this immaculate record in battle. So you'd want him to be your leader, and you'd want him to tell you when it's time to go or time to start. And if he says wait, you'd probably wait, because you know he's got this talent, this feature of being undefeated. And then another one is Sabyasachi. So he could draw the bow with both arms. And I don't know, I happen to be from Alabama, where everybody has a bow and hunts. And I've tried it. I've never shot, pulled it and killed something, but I've tried it and it was really difficult. And so I think about the ambidexterity and that he had to do. So his strength with his weapons is like one of his features. And another name is Gudakesha. So that means he's conquered his sleep. And what I think conquered his sleep means is that he wasn't lazy. He didn't stay in bed too late in the morning or lay there and think about it. I don't want to go face the day. He got up and did what he knew he had to do. He didn't stay up late unless he had important things to do. Maybe he did, but he got just a fair enough sleep and wasn't focused on relaxing and being comfortable in sort of a shutdown mode. And the last one that I'm going to share is Parantapa, the subduer of enemies. So if you take all of those things, those are all warrior type qualities, but they can be related and shared in non-warrior type situations like us, like me, because I think about subduing enemies. Like I was thinking about what does that mean for me today? And I was thinking about when I've had several dogs in my life, I was thinking about, okay, they can get riled up, and to get them to calm down, I have to be calm. And then I have to change the way I handle my body and my voice. And so then I was taking that into my personal life and thinking about, I came from a business where everything is chaotic and super frenetic and energetic and go, go, go. We're running late. We got to go. So you can have this sort of hyped up energy in a building full of people of it. And I had a memory that Kalia used to stop by my office sometimes and hang out with me. And we would just go in the back and watch like it was a circus. And we would shake our heads and he would say, how do they know what they're doing? Like, shouldn't that be done? Why is that? And I said, I don't know. It just all works, but it was chaos. And then when it would get to a point where it would be unproductive, I was the leader. So I was expected to go in and sort of get everything calm and organized again and bring people's confidence back, because they would start having doubt that they could carry it off, that they might have put too much on their plate, and that maybe this time it wasn't going to work. And they would look at me like, what are we going to do? Like, we don't know. I would hear their doubt and feel their doubt, and the clock was ticking and people were rushing. And so I would basically subdue them, because I would have to be calm and assertive. And so I was thinking about, like, it took a lot for my gut to do that. It took confidence in myself, and it took digging deep into not letting any weakness show in my own self, and then to try to support their strengths. And so I guess I was thinking that was similar. And so I was enjoying kind of comparing what my possible leadership skills could be, because sometimes I doubt if I have any. And so then I was reading about Arjuna today too, along with Chaitanya, and I was remembering another verse that I was just going to share. It's in the Bhagavatam 1:15-29, the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I'm just going to read the English translation. Arjuna's constant remembrance of the Lord, slow to speak, of Lord Sri Krishna rapidly increased his devotion. And as a result, all the trash in his thoughts subsided. So I was talking about this a while ago, and I was talking about Arjuna on the battlefield, but I was thinking about the trash in our minds, of all of our minds. And I know that, these little reminders that we do for ourselves, that I learned from Marie, just little things to remind, okay, don't forget who you are, what your purpose is. And I was thinking about, this translation from Prabhupada, to constantly remember Krishna as a way to not get off the leadership track and to stay more focused on what our obligation is, and to face the stuff that we're facing, and to go in with a strong heart, with this sort of all these qualities that I've just been describing. Is like there's only one way to do it. there's no, we can't outthink it and control it, manipulate it. I try a lot. I've tried for a long time, and I know that if I settle into my God consciousness, and the way I do that is everything, and every day I get a little more conscious of what that even looks like, even though it started with a few little things. And another thing I remember about Kalia was when Marie told me that she had a blue sponge for Krishna or something like that, a blue dish towel or something. I went home and I painted my front door blue. I go, well, that'll help, because then I'll be in and out and I'll see it every time. Blue, blue, blue. And Kalia came over that day. He goes, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm painting this door blue. And I told him what my purpose was. And he said, well, did you sand it? Did you prime it? I go, no, just painted it right on there. And he was so upset. It just really bothered him that I didn't do it the right way. It's still blue and it still functions and it's beautiful. But that's multiplied so much in my life. And so using that, I now, everything, if I have a choice, when I purchase something, I make sure it's blue, and everything. And then I even have a blue car now, when I got this car when I had the accident last year. So I think about like my keychain now in my car, and everywhere there's little stickers and notes everywhere. Don't forget, because if I can stay focused on God, I think that's the capacity with which I might be able to tap into some of my leadership. And so the devotion increases, the trash decreases. And if the trash decreases, then I got a fair chance to be a decent leader, right? That was my logic today. So I'm going to share another Prabhupada quote. This morning walk in 1973 in Los Angeles is strong, but I liked it because I was looking for what are some things that Prabhupada actually said about leadership specifically. So I'm going to just read this letter, or this is a morning walk, I'm sorry. We have to educate people in Krishna consciousness and expose these leaders. They're not leaders, they're misleaders. People should know what kind of leader they must have. The leader is sinful. How can he do good for the people? The leaders must be above all suspicion, and then the country will be happy. And I just thought about that, and I was like, holy cow, when is the last time we had a leader of the country that was above all suspicion? Like, I went all the way back to like Lincoln, and then I said, I heard something negative about him last week that they've uncovered. I'm like, it's always there. So I said, well, how is this country ever going to be happy? And then yesterday I was talking to Keith on the phone, and thank you, Keith, for chatting yesterday. And I told him I was going to, talk about 321 tonight, and he shared a recording with me from Tulsi Gabbard. And I don't know her. I'm not into politics. I don't follow any of it. So I wasn't really sure what it was, but I listened because I honored Keith's sharing. And her quote was along the same lines. It was so pure and beautiful. And then I was thinking, wow, it's just the opposite of Prabhupada's saying basically they're misleaders and they're going to do no good for this country. It's sad. It's frustrating to read that, and it's gotten much worse since he left his body. So I was reading or listening to Tulsi's recording today that Keith shared with me, and I'll just repeat it for you. She said, our country needs leaders who are willing to serve the well-being of others. that embody leadership qualities over personal benefit. So basically she's saying that our leaders should lead by having a spirit of service. And so I don't know much about politics. I got so fed up with it, I just kind of tuned it out, and I've tuned out a lot of stuff, you know, TV and radio and everything, because it's just like, it's so full of the misleaders that Prabhupada talks about. And I didn't follow Tulsi, and I don't know much about her, but just from watching this little short video today, I was like, yeah, if our motive is to serve, then it works. And so it was touching. And so then I was like, okay, so if I could ask both of them, like, what do they think the qualities of true leadership in a service mode are, Prabhupada and Tulsi Gabbard. So I came across this letter from 1973 that Prabhupada wrote to Karanhara. And he said, the standard textbook for civilized administration is the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam. A leader must be, and here's where he just specifically quotes the qualities, and they're just so beautiful. A leader must be peaceful. That's my biggest goal in life, to be peaceful, self-controlled, austere, pure, tolerant, honest, wise, learned, and religious. And like, it's like they've taken the religion out of it. Even the learned is gone now with what we've got. So it's like honesty, all of this stuff is like, and then Prabhupada went on to talk about President Nixon and what a rogue and thief he was. And he said, how can anybody like that do good to society? I was around when Nixon was here. I remember all that stuff. So the ultimate goal in life for us is to serve God and not to serve ourselves. If we're going to go back to Godhead, we don't do it, you know, with the Nixon method. Or the Clinton method, or the others. So this came to mind, so I'm going to see if I can express this a little bit. So Prabhupada lists these beautiful qualities of peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance. They all sound like, yeah. And then I thought, so he refers to his Guru Maharaj a little bit, and he talks about how he had all these qualities. And then, so I thought, okay, so these qualities exist in humans, because here's two guys that actually, you know, we can prove that it was real. So it's in there. It's in these bodies that we have. And, you know, I heard David's lecture the other day on nature nurture, so I'm not going to go there. And it was really nice to be affirmed that that's not the deal. So I thought, well, if it's in there, if it's innately part of our being, then we could be pure and have austerity, and we could be peaceful. And so we have to cultivate it. And like in the ways that I was just describing earlier, by putting Krishna in the center of everything, so we don't forget, because we forget so easily. But I was like, okay, so here's two men in recent history who had those qualities, and like they knew that we had them. So this is a heavy processing sort of component of my day today, is that like, if they knew this to be true and they exhibited it, they didn't just talk about it, they did it, they walked it, then they must know that we have it, and I trust them. So then I'm going to sort of say, okay, so I've got some of this. And it was sort of confirming or reaffirming for me to say, okay, inside of me there's some honesty, truth, austerity, all this peacefulness that I'm desiring. Because why else would these men have put their life in this position to come encourage us? It would have been a waste of their time. It would have been like futile. Like, why would you? It has to be there. So like, I felt, well, okay, so maybe there's drops in there I get to cultivate. So I liked hearing that and feeling that today. So I hope that inspires somebody. So the word learned that Prabhupada uses for his guru, and also when he's listing these qualities in that letter. So it's like, I tend to go to knowledge a lot and like, let me learn some stuff and memorize some stuff, and I skip the heart part. So I was thinking about the learned today, and And so I was reading about, some letters that Prabhupada wrote, and that where he mentions his spiritual master as and leadership qualities. So I'm going to just share that for a second. This is just from the same letter that I read earlier, but later down the paragraph. Even big scholars were afraid to talk to his speaking of Guru Maharaj's beginning students, even the beginning students, big scholars were afraid of him because they were so smart. He was called the living encyclopedia. I've heard you say that a lot, David. He could talk with anybody on any subject. We should be like that. This is Prabhupada saying, we should be like that. He never compromised. And Prabhupada shares that I have taken up that same policy, never to compromise. That's just so like factually, like sink your teeth into it, like real for me. It's like, don't compromise, just do what's right. And then if I can gain foundation in the Vedas and in my practice, my association, all the stuff that we espouse to do together, then there's a foundation that says, okay, I can learn some of this or tap into what's already in there, but I don't need to compare myself to being, so learned that nobody's afraid. That's not the point here. It's more like there's a really nice solid path, and it's pure, and it has features that are attainable, and we've got leaders to show us what that looks like, so we have something we can endeavor toward. It doesn't seem unattainable or unreachable, and we're looking towards that leadership as the people who are around us that we might be leading, whether our children or students or coworkers, in that same line of communicating who we are, what we stand for, and what encouragement we can give to other people. So Prabhupada also brings up that smoking example. I get what he's saying about smoking, and I had trouble with that line because both of my parents smoked, but I never smoked. So I thought, okay, they would have told me not to smoke and kept smoking. I know that for sure. But somehow in me, there was a person who didn't think that was an attractive feature and didn't need to try it. And so I'm very grateful for that. But I get that whole walk in the talk thing, and that was just not how I was raised. It was like, because I said so kind of thing, like a lot of us back then, and still. And then I reflected on, like, when I was running my company, like how many times did I do it because I said so kind of thing, and people heard me, and then they looked at me like I looked at my parents. So that became a realization for me with that line about the smoking. And something else I wanted to share about Prabhupada is that, and I think most of you have heard me say this, but I just wanted to share it again, is that because there's so much video footage and photographs and personal experience and letters and so forth of his time here, is that I don't know of any, and that where it's contradictory to what we're talking about here, is that to be, when no one's watching, to be in ourselves, to give back the wallet that we find, or the change on the floor, whatever, that we do the right thing even when nobody's looking. That part of Prabhupada, that part of his character makes me feel like there's possibilities, and it's I think that's for me, that's like the real relishable part of being a leader, is that we're not perfect. I can't be the perfect leader 100% of the time, but knowing that I have a choice to choose to lean towards those qualities that Prabhupada just listed, even when nobody's looking, even when I'm off by myself, even when I do have authority to be the one that says, just do it because I said so, like not to choose that anymore. That's just, I like the fact that I mean, I think that's what got me into Krishna consciousness, is not just the kirtan and all that stuff, but just watching Prabhupada's videos. I've watched so many hundreds of hours that I get a joy and a confidence from that, that I don't stumble on the negative stuff and the person that caught him doing this and saying that and doing that. So that's my joy and ode to Prabhupada. Okay, I'm gonna almost finish up here. One of the other things in this verse is that Prabhupada used the word general twice, and I was like, I know he doesn't just throw words in. They all have a substantial piece of the pie. And so I was like, he says people in general always require a leader. And then at the end he says, the king or the head of any state, the father, the school teacher, they're all considered to be natural leaders of the innocent people in general. And so I was like, does he mean the exception? So I studied on that a little bit, and I thought about, like, what does he mean by this, and what am I to get from this? Why is this kind of nudging at me, tugging at me, that there's, in general, it sounds like vague or something. And so I was stewing on that today, and I'm going to share what I came up with, and I would love some feedback and sharing and opinions about this. So I was like, okay, so these were my questions. Like, why is he saying this twice in this purport? Are some people natural born leaders, like Chaitanya? He's just born, and he's already got people singing Krishna's name. He just walks out of the house and he glows, and like it's natural. And I've known people that are natural leaders that they just get it. And so, in general, is all the rest of us. And then some people don't have to go through that. So that was one of my thoughts. And another one was that, is it that innate goodness that we have, that if some of us just don't get influenced, like I just didn't want to smoke, like I didn't need to try that. And so there was something in me that just wasn't gonna, I mean, I can be spiteful and other things. And it was definitely the generation of smoking in the 70s. So everybody else was smoking, but I chose not to. So is there an innate goodness that says, that knows some of the right stuff? And so in general, smokers hang out with smokers and people follow and do what their friends do. But in that one circumstance, there were many others where I didn't do that. So that was one thought of why he was using the word general. And then I thought about people that get put into positions that they don't really need to be in because they're not a good leader. Like the father who has a child that he doesn't want, or a teacher who gets promoted, but they're not really a good teacher. And they kind of fall into sort of a default authority position. So then I was thinking, well, in general, those guys they're in a category, and that category is pretty huge now. So those were some of my thoughts about that word. And I hope that you guys will give me some feedback on that. And then I'm going to just end with some fun stuff, some fun facts. Followers is a word that everybody uses now because everybody wants to know how many followers we have on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And so that number is really important. So I was thinking about what Prabhupada would think about this followers thing we got going on. And so I was just looking up stuff today. And so I was thinking about celebrities and people that people follow, because we follow people for no godly reason. And so I was like, I wonder who has the most followers. So I looked it up. And when I was looking today, I was like, holy cow. So this guy, Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo, he's a Portuguese soccer champion. He has the most followers on Instagram, which is something like 238 million people. So I was like, well, what can be so great about him? Like, I mean, you can win some soccer, but it's just not that. It's the number one in the whole world in any subject is a soccer champion. So I just scrolled through and looked to see who he was. And I wanted to see if he posted anything about God, and I wanted to see what his life was about. Like, is there any substance to this person that the most people follow? And there wasn't, sad to say. They're mostly selfies and pictures of his abs and quotes like, look at me kind of stuff, hair products and skin products. And he's beautiful, but and he has children and a wife, but I just spent a few minutes, not long, just kind of digging around to see if there was anything on any of his sites that was worth like quoting or repeating, and I couldn't find anything. So that felt kind of sad. And then I just was curious, the whole Kardashian thing. So I scanned on down to Kim Kardashian. She's 188 million followers. And so I thought, well, gosh, I wonder how many followers Prabhupada has. So I threw him in the mix, and I said, okay, what are the numbers going to look like? I kind of know, but these other people with the most followers are all about their body, the body. So I found a little bit of good news, and I was just going to share it. There's a whole bunch of stuff about Prabhupada. There's about 38 Instagram accounts that have the word Srila Prabhupada in it, in the account name, and that was encouraging. And I linked on every one of them and followed them just to see what they got. And they're more about Prabhupada, but those were actually in the title. And then I said, well, I wonder how many followers that is. So I added up the 38 counts. That's 77,000 total followers for Srila Prabhupada on Instagram. And so that's just like this big compared to this soccer guy and Kim Kardashian. And so I was like, well, who is talking about God on Instagram and Facebook and all this? So I really didn't spend hours doing this, but it was kind of a fun research. Like I checked on the Dalai Lama and Oprah and people like that. And they're all in the millions. They're all more than Prabhupada. And so then I thought about what Diamante was trying to do the last 6 months with the Spirit Soul Media. And I was like, we got a lot of work to do because there's just not much out there for people to grasp onto. And if we're into followers and we're talking about followers, it just seemed like something we should put a little more energy into. Some of the stuff I clicked on with Prabhupada was pretty weak and nobody was really active. There were a few that were very active that had hundreds of thousands, but not too much. So there's a couple of things I wanted to end on this. So I found a guy in Gainesville, and I know you guys know this football player, that he's kind of God-centered. So I was like, I'm going to just I'm going to scroll through his Instagram account and see what he's saying about God, because I know he posts a lot of God stuff. He has 2.3 million followers. And he's from Gainesville, so it's kind of nice to know that somebody there is talking about God a lot. So I just took one of his quotes off his page just to share with you guys. And it's from the Bible, but it says, "For God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power, love, and self-control." It resonated with me, and I could sort of groove it into the Vedas and say, okay, the whole self-control thing and spirit and fearlessness. So I was like, okay, so this one guy, Tim Tebow is his name, he's a Gator football player, is quoting the Bible all over his page. And so probably a third of his quotes were Bible centered. So I know that it's possible to have spiritual followers in this small town and in our lives and create that. I don't know how much we're doing of that, but it's encouraging to know that we have a group of people that and someone here in this group that's here right now, Dominique, that would help us get more of that out there, so that if what people want to do is follow via media, then we make a viable, substantial something for them to follow, so that maybe they'll click on that instead of all the selfies, So that's where I'm at. I don't know what time it is, but 8:05. So thank you guys for sharing my first class with me, and thank you for your love and support, encouragement. And before I open for see if anybody's got anything they want to share, I just want to acknowledge both Melanie and dear Govinda for being the leaders in our community, because we have this class tonight. We have everything that we are in our spiritual connection because of your outstanding leadership and your ability to walk the talk and be leaders and show us what's possible. Because until I met you guys, I didn't know that people like that existed. I didn't even know it was a thing. So I'm glad that I can experience it firsthand versus just read about it or watch it on a video from the 60s, So thank you guys. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you for your class, Laxmipriya. Prabhu.
Thank you.
I like recently I was speaking with someone about leadership, and what came up was leadership is a choice. It's not a position. And Lord Chaitanya is personality of Godhead. And it's something like I'm taking more and more seriously in my spiritual life, is that the personality of Godhead who came 500 years ago, which is nothing, it's like such a short time, in the form of Lord Chaitanya, he gave us an instruction. He said, be a guru. And be a guru is so much about what you decided to focus on tonight, and that sense of example, by living by example, to be a guru. And then be a guru means also being a leader is taking responsibility for others, spiritual life, like a parents take responsibility to free their offspring, like you say about teacher. And so I meditate a lot on that, because God comes and he gives us an instruction, and I want to take it seriously, that instruction that we should be a guru, like not me or like everyone would get in contact with Lord Chaitanya. We have a debt to pay back to him, and to pay back to Lord Chaitanya, and of course to Guru and Krishna, like meaning to Srila Prabhupada, is to be a guru. And being a guru means being responsible to choose leadership, which is not always the easiest path. Yes. Thank you. I feel inspired by your class. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for being here, Lori. Thank you for that sharing that. That each of us being a guru. I recently learned this word prajalpa, and I'm thinking about what you just said, like being a guru. Like it sounds like a big appointment. Like, oh, I gotta be a guru. I gotta share. I gotta talk about stuff that I'm not even sure about and I don't really know about. And so it was so intimidating for me. But when I think about just if I'm going to talk to someone, or I'm going to share or spend time with them, whether they're Krishna conscious or in our group or not, is that if I just keep it centered on God, if I can somehow weave that into the conversation or slide the book over, it's just a fun kind of lighthearted way to be that guru. That sounds so like big to me, but for me, it's just okay. Just get the conversation going, and keep it light, and just decide how to approach this person or this situation in a way that's not intimidating to them or pushy or aggressive, but like I like that sort of thought of like, well, I'll just be this little guru that's inspired by all this leadership talk that I shared with you guys today, and just know that that's my job. Like it sounds like when people in this movement say, oh, you've got to go out and preach, like I'm like, somebody's going to ask me a question, I don't even know anything, how can I? But what I can do is choose to be a guru in these little situations where I can have an effective conversation and pass on the prajalpa. Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your class, Laxmipriya. Can you hear me just fine? Yeah. When I was 23 years old, so when I was 23, so that's 17 years ago, that's when I met Lori Reisman, and Lori taught me about this organization, Reevaluation Counseling, RC, and it's very humanistic like it's all about healing emotion. It's about emotional release and healing, and then the kind of goal is to, it's not God-centered at all, but the goal is to quote reemerge, because they believe in all the qualities of the human, which we might call soul, but that all those qualities can reemerge, that they've been covered over, and that we need to heal from how we've been hurt. And some of that's all very complementary to what we do in Sadvatov. I don't really see any contradiction, but the thing is that it's a secular organization, but they've been really successful. They create a lot of guidelines and boundaries for the community and for the leaders. And when I heard from Lori that if I ever wanted to teach or lead in the organization, I would need to be an example of someone who doesn't escape through like intoxication, because intoxication is very clearly, and any addiction really, but that one's a really clear, like using intoxication, it numbs it numbs your feelings, and then you can't, it's like you're just contradicting the whole entire stance of the organization by numbing one's feelings. So when I heard that, I was like, oh, okay, I'll never drink again. And at that point, I would already become disenchanted by alcohol or substances. Like it was like once every 6 months, and I was 23. I was kind of over it. So I was like, oh, great, I don't need that. So I'm really grateful for all of that energy I got to save from drinking. And I remember one time Lori was I was gonna eat a cookie, and she stopped me. She's like, why don't you have that later? Because we were about to go do like a co-counseling session, trade listening, and do some healing or whatever. And she was just thinking that the sugar wouldn't help me in my healing process or whatever. So I was like, okay, like I never thought of that or heard of that. But anyway, the point is, I'm just saying I'm grateful for regulations. Like for example, in Krishna consciousness, the 4 regulative principles of freedom, and how they automatically create a purified existence. And so I know on that list from Srila Prabhupada, he said pure, I think was one of them. On the list you read. It just you automatically become a leader when you purify your existence. Anyway, I find it really exciting to, I just like, I don't know, I just, I don't know, I have ability. So whenever I find out that some sort of regulation or boundary is going to help me to serve more, or like, yeah, I don't know why, I just feel like, oh, good, yeah, like definitely I'll take it, like I just go for it, like whatever makes sense. I want to do that. So anyway, so I get excited about this topic of leadership. Also, one more thing. What am I saying? Share one more thing. I had a coaching session with Mother Malini the other day, and I got I had the realization that, like, because I have this side of me, which I guess you could probably hear it when I just shared, that I like want to be perfect. I have a perfectionist side. So anyway, I'm starting to realize that like my imperfections are like a perfect opportunity to realize that I'm not, well, that there is someone else who is perfect. Like basically my imperfection can immediately remind me of God. Like, oh, there I am with being human and having an imperfection. Like, and it can immediately connect to Krishna. That's all. So that kind of a heavy feeling about showing up and doing things right and doing things perfect and polished and thoughtful and conscious, and no matter what deliver my
Dominic, Damianti, you're kind of,
because
I'm losing your voice. Can you hear me okay?
oh, did you? Okay, yeah.
You're kind of coming in and out. I don't think I've heard like the last.
Um, okay, well,
Hello? Damianti, are you still there?
hi, can you hear me?
Now we can. We missed a couple minutes.
I feel like repeat.
Yeah, there's definitely some lag. Looks like she muted herself. Is she typing? No. Okay, we'll see if she comes back.
Hi, Chris.
Oh, I still can't hear you. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Laxmipriya. I appreciate your appreciation for this verse, and I'm moved by how you've been meditating on it, contemplating it, absorbing it, and something I'm taking away is okay. So like we've joined Lord Chaitanya's movement, and so I mean that's an essential thing. And of course, just last month there was the formal initiation into Lord Chaitanya's movement with Srila Prabhupada as our current link to the movement. And so we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to represent Lord Chaitanya, and that's the sort of leadership talked about here. That's the sort of leadership talked about here. And so that's one thing that's it's weighty, and it's also inspiring. Yeah, you quoted that verse, 7th chapter, Bhagavad Gita, Manushanam sahasrishu kashtit yatati siddhye yatatamapi siddham kashtin mam vatitapita. It's 1 in 1,000 who even think about, like, what's the meaning of life, and who try to approach liberation. There's, maybe 1 in amongst thousands of them who really come with some seriousness to Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness. So it's special, it's exciting, and it's not just like fun and games, as we all know. So it's a responsibility, and a way we define this responsibility. Yeah, what's it mean for me, for you, to be gurus, to be leaders, and that we to support and encourage people to come to Srila Prabhupada, to establish their personal direct relationship with Srila Prabhupada, with Srila Prabhupada as their current link to Lord Chaitanya's disciplic succession. And I appreciated the followers statistics, and I'm kind of proud to say I don't really even know what Instagram is. I have some pride in that, but something with photographs or something. But whatever. So I appreciate the statistics, and right. So the statistics, indicate that, like, yeah, we have so much work to do. Of course, this process is joyfully performed. We have so much work to do to let let just the billions of people know that Prabhupada's in the market, so to speak. Right? And then that's how we can be leaders. Leaders, leaders to really support people to get out of the miseries of material existence. Some not so much recently, but over the years I've shared in class. Sometimes I would just reflect on my personal upbringing. It was secular humanist, nominal Reform Judaism, nothing substantially religious. Had a bar mitzvah, got some good money and gifts, like that. And so, and I was not into like yoga or something like that. But I'm just like, if I think of myself even as 12 years old, 14, 15 years old, early mid 70s, outskirts of Philadelphia, not even talking about my college days, when I started taking Prashad, but just growing up. And I wasn't, but like, if you asked me as a 15-year-old, like, have you ever heard of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi? I said, oh yeah, I heard of him. Have you heard of Guru Maharaji? Yeah, I heard of him. Have you ever heard of Rajneesh? Yes, I've heard of him. Yeah, like this. I didn't care, I wasn't into it, but sure, I've heard these people's names. If you ask me, have you ever heard of Krishna? I'd say, yeah, I've heard Krishna, like that. If you ask me, have you heard of Prabhupada? I would say, no, never heard that name. Never heard Prabhupada, never heard that name. So for me, this is significant because it relates to your abs comments about the followers and things like that. So even others who came with a so-called, Eastern brand of spirituality, they succeeded to get people to know about them because that was their goal. And not that I know them personally, but that was their goal, and they succeeded. And Prabhupada's goal was to get the world to hear about Krishna, and he succeeded. And he had there was no agenda. There was nothing self-serving in his agenda. So that, of course, is unique. So then our mission ought to be to get the world, hundreds of millions and billions of people, to know about Prabhupada. And that's how we can be leaders and gurus.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a good, like, stepping stone connection to all of what I said. I think what striking me like most tender of what you shared is the initiation, like making it a formal. I think you expressed in an email that all of us had upped our game or gotten more excited about Krishna consciousness, and you were experiencing it, the week after, and it's definitely done so for me. But I wasn't putting the dots together to this verse until you reflected that and shared that like, okay, here's the rules and it's time to get serious, and there's a lot of work, but it's not work. It's work in the sense that it's going to take some energy and time, but and going back to what Damayanti was sharing, it's also there's a structure already set up. There's the guidebooks and anything you need to know, it's in there. If we take time like I did today to just sit down and dive in, and now I'm reflecting yesterday. I don't know if it was yesterday, but whenever Ladini was teaching class and she was saying that it's hard for her to sit with the books more than a half hour or so, like she gets distracted, it's serious stuff. And like, if you're just reading it, sometimes I can see that, but I have this experience of like, once I dive in, like I can't come up for air. And if this class hadn't had to be at this time, I'd still be diving, and it's something I could do all day. And so that doesn't feel like work to me, but in the shape of work, so that it's productive not just fact-finding curiosities for my personal, put in my pocket or whatever. It helps me be a stronger, more conscious person. But the work focused on getting the 77 billion followers for Prabhupada it's physical, mental work, and we've taken this sort of vow, this commitment to another level. And so maybe with what's happened since initiation, it seems like there's more favorable atmosphere with us as this group, and more the level of commitment has been increased. So that's like in conjoining kind of what you said with what I experienced in my reading today, and connecting it with Lavina yesterday and Damayanti today, and plus what we tried to start in March or April, whenever during COVID with the Spirit of Soul Media. So yeah, there's more purpose to it today. Thank you. It's probably time to go, but I wanted to just say that something I'm interested in knowing more about, and that we can, and I'm happy to do some work and investigation on it, is that all the names, like to me, everybody has all the names, and I'm just curious, because when I was reading today, because I'm always wondering about my source, and I'm always wondering if this is accurate information, but it's just intriguing, so I get to dig in. And so I'm wondering, like, if you would just touch on the feedback for the names of Krishna, of what is the credible source? How is that? And I know that that's true with a lot of these devotees. These leader devotees have a lot of names, and so how accurate was that information? And is there another place for information, or do you have any comments on that? The names being sort of empowering those qualities, that kind of stuff.
I'm not quite sure what you're asking. I mean, you listed several names of Arjuna,
Mm-hmm.
and so I guess I'm not quite sure what you're asking. I mean, the names for Arjuna, they're right. They're right from Bhagavad Gita. It was beautiful.
Okay. How many are there? Is there a certain number, or I'm like Damayanti. I like quantitative, things in boxes.
Names for God are unlimited. There's what is it? There's a Veda called like the 1,000 names of Vishnu, and Vishnu is an expansion. There's Sahasranam, Vishnu Sahasranam. Prabhupada references it. There's actually a book, the 1,000 names of Vishnu. I've seen a listing of maybe it's 1,000, maybe it's 108 names of Lord Chaitanya. You got, like in Bangalore, they had like 108 names for Lord Nrsingadev. Yes, I have a little book in my home actually, and it analyzes all the names of Krishna and Arjuna mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. The fascinating little book. So it's described Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapitanyam Tesmarine Nakala Etadrisi Tavakri Bhagavan Mamapi Duradeva Midrashami Hajanina Nuraga. Lord Chaitanya says, he says to Krishna, you have hundreds and thousands of names. So my understanding is God's unlimited. Krishna is unlimited. And so Krishna has unlimited names and unlimited forms and unlimited pastimes. So the short answer to your question is it's unlimited. And so we can we maybe hear about 40 or 50 names, but then there's a well-known Veda called the 1,000 names of Vishnu, and it can be expanded to 1,000,000. God's unlimited, Krishna's unlimited, his names are unlimited. Of course, that doesn't mean we can make up something, but Krishna reveals his forms, his names, his pastimes, his qualities, unlimited.
And to complete what you were saying, Laxmipriya, about does the name always mean something, a quality? And yes, the name of Krishna and his devotees, they reflect qualities and activities. Like Rishikesha is like the controller of the senses. Parthasarathi is the name of Krishna, that is the chariot driver of Arjuna. You know, like, so each name, either it's a quality of Krishna or Vishnu, or it's part of a relationship with his pure devotee and eternal associate. So if we look at it from that perspective, then Krishna's quality are unlimited. And then his activities with his pure devotee are also unlimited. So there is unlimited names, considering that all the names have a meaning, like what you are saying, all have a meaning. Yeah.
A nice way to study the qualities.
Yeah, the songs are composed of names. Gopi Jana Balaba, the one who is most dear to the gopis. Giri Varadari, the lifter of Govardhan Hill. Yashodananda, and the darling son of Mother Yashoda, as Malini just said. So that's a name for Krishna related to Mother Yashoda. Krishna has unlimited devotees, and so he's Gopinath, the protector of the gopis. Right. So unlimited names designating unlimited relationships, qualities, and pastimes and forms.
Laxmipriya, were you wondering where to do research? You're concerned about your sources?
That was part of it. I think that I understood part of it about Krishna's name, but as I was just trying to study about Arjuna and how he got so much respect and like why he was such a great warrior. I was trying to study about that today, and that's when I realized, okay, there's the multiple names again. So looking at his names, I just picked a few. I was like, wow, for me to really get to know him, I was thinking I'd like to read more about that. So I was thinking of where does that come from is there a conclusive thing versus spotting it here and there and trying to dig around so much. Yeah, that's more clear.
See, when you're in the Bhagavad Gita course, and some of the questions for chapter 1, we ask questions on what's the meaning of the name Govinda, things like that. And Prabhupada, in lots of his purports, he comments on the meanings of names for Krishna and Arjuna. And in the Bhagavatam, meanings of names for Shukadeva Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit. Hare Krishna.
Bhagavad Gita class, Jai.
Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you, Laxmipriya.
Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Lakshmi.